Welcome to the Headliners. My name is Edward Mbeche. I'm your host, CEO, founder of Helen Technology. And today I have an awesome guest. His name is Keith Willard. Keith is a president for Keith Willard Events LLC, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
meaning we're gonna talk a lot of stuff. Like if you're looking for stuff like for high end kind of events or like from he has done stuff for like from like Ritz-Carlton Hotel to like Mark Cuban and Madame Madame. How do you say
Tussauds.
that?
Madame Tussauds. Yeah. Madame Tussauds. Yeah. Wax museum. Yeah. It was
Yeah,
it was
Keith.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Keith. Welcome to the Headliners. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, sir. Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome. Thank you so
That,
much for inviting me on this.
that's so awesome. That's so awesome. Let's do this, Keith.
Sure.
Let's go. Let's do introduction. People to
Okay.
just kind of tell them like who's Keith, like where you from, where do you grow up, like great childhood, like
Yeah.
anything. Yeah, sell lemonade or anything.
Well, I'll
Yeah,
give you the short. I'll give you the short version. I actually was born and raised in Texas, and South Texas, Brownsville, McAllen, Harlingen. If anybody's familiar with South Texas, I mean South Texas, as far south as you can go.
hold on.
Uh,
Before you go there, I'm gonna make a joke. Someone I heard this on the comedian he was making. He said when you say South Texas, Texas, he said that's where they make white people. I was like,
Pretty close.
that's
Pretty
funny.
close. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's really, I mean, it is crazy. I mean, when I was there, and of course here I am, Caucasian redhead. I
yeah.
mean, I couldn't have stood out more, honestly, when I was a child. But I've learned that to enjoy the fact that I stand out.
Yeah.
And then we moved up north to Dallas, Texas, where I went to college and went to the University of Texas in Arlington.
Mhm.
And then I took over as a not-for-profit executive director, and it was a really tiny not-for-profit, tiny, tiny, tiny. And
Yeah.
so in order to raise any money, we had to throw parties. Right, we had to throw events that people would spend money at in order to raise money for the not-for-profit, and that's where I really got.
You're still working in. I mean, you're still in college and working for the nonprofit. That's where.
No, I had already graduated. I'm
Okay.
now as a not-for-profit,
Okay.
and and I had to come up with ways to create events with no money. So I learned how to stretch a dollar,
Yeah.
really stretch a dollar,
Yeah.
and actually come up with things that people wanted to go to. Right. And so I had to build a reputation over years. And it was actually at one of these events that a gentleman named Russell Holloway, who was the owner of a company called Feature Presentations,
Okay.
he came to the event and was really loved everything about it. He loved, where it was at, what the theme was, all the decor, all of the entertainment. And
Mhm.
so he said, who put all this together? And I said, well, I did. And
Mhm.
he's like, have you ever thought about doing events full time as a profession? And I
Mhm.
said, not really. I mean, my world's not for profit. And he offered me a job right there on the spot. And so within a couple of weeks, I'm flying overseas and doing these huge events at these fantastic hotels,
Yep.
a whole different world. I came from the world of scrounging for every penny and every dollar. And all of a sudden I'm in these events where they're spending millions of dollars. It was crazy. It was
Yeah.
the curve, the education curve was crazy over the top.
Yeah.
And it opened my eyes to a whole different world out there that people were really willing to spend a lot of money
Mhm.
to throw a party. And that just blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, people really willing to spend this kind of money to throw a party. And not
Yeah.
just parties, but we're talking about conferences and conventions and concerts and all of those things that we talked slightly, shortly a little bit before we went live.
Mhm.
And I learned how to do all of those things. And I fell in love with the event industry, right?
Yeah.
Throwing a party. And it could be a wedding, it could be a bar mitzvah, it could be a birthday party, but all of these things that where people get to come together, and you needed to create something that wowed them and that made them remember that particular event. And it could, again, sales meetings, any of those things, they all have kind of a singular goal: remember me, right?
Yeah.
And then I moved to Fort Lauderdale. I had, like I said, I'm keeping it short, and moved to Fort Lauderdale and started in the hotel industry randomly. Because I moved here, I didn't know anybody. I was in my mid-30s. I was having a what do they call it? A breakthrough, not a yeah, not a not a
Yeah,
mid-30, yeah. Breakthrough, and I wanted to change. I basically wanted to change my life because I was burnt out at that time.
yeah.
And so I moved to Fort Lauderdale and started at a hotel called Hyatt Pier 66. So if you're here in South Florida, you know this hotel. It was around forever and ever. It's going through a massive renovation right now. And I started as a catering manager, just a basic salesperson coming in. And I spent the next 8 years working my way up through the hotels until I was director of catering at the Ritz-Carlton in Bell Harbor.
Mm.
And then I realized it was time to go back into business for myself because I had so many clients saying, we would love to have you plan our event because you did such an amazing job at the hotel, but you can't leave the hotel. I'm like, no, unfortunately not. And so after so many clients say that to you, you finally say, you know what, I need to branch off and do my own thing. And so now it's now 7 years since I started Willard Events, and it's crazy. It's been going amazing.
I wish I met you few years ago because I was a traveling comedian, right? And a lot of my events, I was trying to stay away from all these venues like the theaters. Like I would like
Really?
because they did not like the theater either they did not have did not so like let's say I was traveling and my audience maybe is like 500 people, right?
Right. That's a
So
lot of
like,
people to
and
make
that's
laugh.
what I need, 500 people. But when I look at venue, the venue holds like 1,200, 1,100, 1,500.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to have an empty theater.
Right.
So I was booking hotels, and the arts of negotiating with hotels is like one hotel give you a deal, next one goes way up, and then
Oh yeah.
it was kind of weird. I wish I met you. You can kind of negotiate for me. That's so awesome.
And that's the thing about hotels is that there's the people when you would book a hotel for any kind of event, there's typically a food and beverage minimum. And people get really confused about that particular term, food and beverage minimum. They think that that's their bill, and that's not their bill. That's meaning you have to spend this much money in order to get this room for your event. I think of it like I tell people, I think of it like as a gift card, right? The hotel says, here's a $12,000 gift card. You have to spend all of it plus. And then I'm like, and so you have to get to that minimum, but you're probably going to spend more.
Yeah.
And many times it doesn't include service charge, which is 24%, and sales tax, which can range anywhere from 7 to 9%. So you have to add 30% to that as well. And I think a lot of people forget that. I just think that or they're not, the salesperson doesn't explain it well,
Yeah.
or it's part of the education. Especially when I have new couples come to me, we have this conversation to say, okay, now before we start looking at venues, here are some basic things that you need to understand when it comes to booking hotels.
Okay.
And the other thing is days of the week. Sometimes, as a traveling comedian, were you really stuck on like Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, or were you doing Saturdays and Sundays as well?
Oh, I was doing like mostly Friday and Saturday.
Mostly Friday and Saturday. So a hotel, that's their prime night, right? So they can get a lot of money for their Friday and Saturday night. And so they're saying to you, look, we have a $15,000 minimum. You're like, oh, well, I don't know. I can open bar, I don't know. Hopefully people buy enough alcohol.
Yeah.
I mean, so it really depends on the hotel, because sometimes they'll make that they'll negotiate that. If you're coming in and they say, well, if we can keep all of the food and beverage that we make off of it, then we'll give you the space, as long as you can guarantee a certain number of people are going to come to the event. So it's all over the place.
So off days, like you're talking about days, like if you do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, probably a little bit better pricing for that.
Yeah. So typically, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays are great nights for corporate events. I mean, I say that with a caveat, because if you're in South Florida during season, which is basically October 15th through May 15th is season, corporate events are a big piece during the middle of the week. So sometimes you have to look at the calendar and say, okay, is it after a major holiday? Great, because that's probably going to be less expensive. Is it right before Thanksgiving? Okay, great. They'll give you a break on that because it's right before Thanksgiving. But you have to know how the business runs. for whatever hotel that you're in. And that's going to be different from San Francisco to South Florida to
Yeah.
New York to Chicago. I mean, that's a lot of information to kind of keep in your brain. I mean, I can't
Yeah.
even imagine trying to do that on your end,
Yeah.
being like, I'm a comedian. I don't want to sign
Yeah.
all these contracts. What is happening here?
Yeah. Yeah. So, question. I was thinking too. Like, do you think now with this Airbnb, VBRU, VBR, or something like that?
All
Do
those
you think?
letters. Yeah.
Do you think they're a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more like, hey, we give you a break because we need the business. We lost so much business from people booking Airbnb or whatever.
Right.
Like in terms of renting a banquet. Oh, do they like? Does the hotel kind of like get excited when they hear someone is like, I need a venue for wedding? They're like, oh, money, we about to get.
It depends on the hotel and it depends on time of year. So
Yeah.
another thing that people don't really understand is that there are two departments in a hotel when it comes to sales, right? There's room sales, which is sleeping rooms, and there's catering. And these are two totally separate departments. And catering is all about the feel goods. They're about social events, weddings, bar mitzvahs. They get into the emotion of an event and are there to do everything they can. Room sales are all about dollars, period. There's very little emotion that comes into the negotiations or into the conversations. They're very much like, well, you have 20 rooms at $240 a night, and we expect you to sell at least 20 rooms per night for 3 nights, and this is your contract. Straightforward. The problem is that couples will say, well, we've got a $50,000 catering bill. Why isn't the hotel being more working with us more on the price point when it comes to the hotel rooms? And it's because it's a separate department. Yeah. The main money a hotel makes is out of their rooms. Probably 90% of a hotel's budget comes out of selling their rooms. And then you get into transient rates, which is basically tourists. And so tourists pay the highest rate. So, and they typically book like 2 weeks out, where corporate events and your kind of events book 6 months to a year out.
Yeah.
And so the hotel plays this almost like a game of Tetris, right? Who's going to give us the best money? Where's our biggest return when it comes to the room sales? Mm-hmm. And that's why it's really important to have somebody that understands that world, because it is its own unique world. And you got to be able to speak their language. So back to your original point with Airbnb, what we found is that it really affected the social world, the social weddings and stuff, where people were like, oh, I don't need such a big room block because most of my guests are going to do Airbnbs. Yeah. It didn't affect the corporate business. So I don't think it had that huge of an effect on the hotel industry overall, because social business was 10% of their total, ravenu. So, you would think it made more difference, but I don't think it did.
Yeah. So I have 2 questions. Hopefully I don't forget. So one, when someone come to Keith Willard Events, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and they say, hey, I'm planning an event, or I'm planning a wedding.
Yeah.
Do they just throw it, like they tell you, like, this is what I need, this, and then you decide either I'm going to put you in a hotel venue or I'm going to put you in a venue that's not a hotel? And also the second question would be like, which is better? Is it better to rent the banquet room from the hotel, or is it better to rent a venue that's not attached to a hotel?
Well, those are good questions, and questions that come up constantly when it comes to the planning process. So if a couple comes to me, my first job is to actually listen to them. It's not to talk about, my experience or what I can do to help them. I want to hear what the vision is. And many times that vision will give you a good sense of whether or not they need to be in a hotel or a venue. So a conversation could go like this. It's, meet with a couple for the first time, and I say, okay, what's the big picture? What's the dream? And somebody will say, oh, we really want to have we want to be on a farm ranch. We want to be on a horse ranch in a barn with all that rustic-y kind of vibe. Or we want to do our ceremony on the beach, but we want a really elegant dinner to follow it.
Mhm.
And those kind of things give me clues into, which direction they're probably going to go.
Okay.
Right. And I think overall, when it comes to weddings, oh gosh, my light just went crazy. When it comes to weddings, many times I think that hotels are easier overall when it comes to events, as far as having a location and a venue and a food and beverage and kind of everything all in one place. Hold on, let me see if I
You,
can.
you want to get the light? Yeah, go ahead. If you want to get, there we go. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little red, but that's all right.
Yeah.
Gotta love live TV. You know what I mean? Gotta love it.
Yeah. So okay. So it's about listening to kind of figure where you can fit them from just gathering all the information that they're giving to you.
Right.
Another thing. So you're in Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know. So you're able to travel all over, right? For
Yes.
events. So someone say they heard about you or they know about you, right?
Right.
But they're in DC or they're in Los Angeles. Of course, they're gonna end up probably flying you over there, right? So you
Right.
can. So if I come to you, I'm in DC and say, hey, I'm doing a wedding, and an event like a comedy show probably is gonna be easier. You'll be like, yeah, I know what you want. But for a wedding, so I come to you, I say, I want a wedding, I want this, and I want this, but it's gonna
Right.
be in DC.
Right.
But you don't know, you don't live in DC, but you don't know much about DC. How do you handle something like that?
Well, I mean, there are some basic rules and business speak, so to say,
Yeah.
across the board. So hotels all basically work the same no matter where you go. And so my first order of business would do an RFP, which means a request for proposal, and I would reach out to multiple hotels in that area and find out, like, what is their minimums, what are their menus like, what is their price per person. Those are the things that I'm going to need to do some investigating. The second piece is that I'm part of a group called NACE, which is the National Association of Catering and Events, who have headquarters or outfits or groups all over the country. And many times I can reach out to other NACE groups and talk to somebody that's in that area to get a lay of the land, right? To figure out and ask them the question. It's like, okay, I have a wedding, they're really interested, or I have a comedian, he's really interested in being in downtown and some type of new hot hip club, and it's really important that they have an incredible sound system. And so with those things, we can narrow down the venue search pretty quickly.
Okay. So that's good.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it anywhere. Honestly, you can. I've done weddings all over the world, so and events all over the world. So you get used to it.
Yeah. So that network allows you to kind of communicate with anybody in that area. I was thinking too about like destination wedding. Like I'm like, hey, I come to Keith Willard Events. I say, I want to do a wedding in Aruba, and this is what I want. This is what I want. Figure it out. And tell me how much it's gonna cost. Or do they tell you, like, tell me how much it's gonna cost, or do they give you a budget, like, this is how much I want to spend?
It goes both ways. I mean, many times couples don't know what their budget's going to be, at the beginning. I mean, the B word is a really bad word sometimes in the event industry. I don't understand it. I think it's important that a couple figure out how much money that they want to spend before they start the planning process. Like, how much money can we really afford to spend on this event? And then we can make some great decisions based on that. So a big thing is number of guests. Your number of guests will dramatically change your budget. So if you're saying, look, we want to have a wedding in Aruba, but we only want to spend 30,000 or 20,000 or whatever the number is, that's going to directly affect the number of guests that you're going to be able to invite. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is how many guests are we going to be able to invite based on being in Aruba at this price point, and then everything else goes from there.
Give me an example. I say, hey, I have 200 people.
Okay.
And I want to do the cheapest wedding or the lowest price point.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, I get that. I get that question. Yeah.
Does it matter which location? Like, if I have 200 people, but I want to spend the minimum, like the lowest,
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter also location. Say, hey, you're in DC, you're in Florida, you're in Miami, you're in Los Angeles, New York.
Yeah.
The prices are gonna change because of the
Oh
location.
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh God, yes. Oh, okay. So if you're trying to figure out how to have a wedding and spend as few dollars as possible, many times it's going to be based on where you live, right? So if you live in South Florida, it makes more sense for you to do a wedding in South Florida because
Yeah.
your guests don't have to travel and take on the expense of getting a hotel, rental cars, plane flights, all that stuff.
Mhm.
And then secondary is if you're wanting to do a destination wedding, find a location that isn't a tourist center, right? So like New York, Chicago, LA, Miami, those Atlanta, those are going to be places that everybody wants to go when they go on vacation,
Yeah.
right? If you're looking to do a wedding, I would do like Rehoboth, which is a great place. It's a little community town. It's going to be probably less expensive. Any place like out in the middle of the country, meaning Ohio, any of those kind of states, what they call Tornado Alley area.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, it's gonna be less expensive because it's not a big city center. It's not where
Yeah.
everybody's trying to go
Yeah.
for their conference or their vacation time.
Mhm.
Now, if it's basically you're trying, let's say that you live in South Florida and you're saying, look, I want to be able to invite 200 people, but my budget's really tight. What are the options here? And the first option is always to do something in your home, always, right? You have to be a little careful on that because if you do a barbecue, great. Barbecues are fairly inexpensive. The food is great. People have a good time, but it's a much more relaxed vibe. It's going to be a buffet, right? Or even a potluck. I've done beautiful weddings that were potluck.
Yeah.
If you're wanting something formal in your backyard, then you're talking about tents and plates and bringing in a really specific caterer and chair rentals and linen and lighting and DJ and then the bill starts to stack up. So the experience is the secondary question. What kind of experience do I want my guest to have? And
Mhm.
if it's like, look, we're super low key, we're easy people, we love our backyard, we love to like hang out with people, then go simple, do a barbecue a barbecue event, have a very quaint wedding, don't spend a lot of money. And then the third option is to find there's specific locations in South Florida that are geared towards, and God, I don't really even want to say this, but it's like Wedding Factory. We've all heard about the Wedding Factory kind of thing, and there are some specific companies here in South Florida. Like there's one off of 595, and of course it's now out of my head, but they have a super low price point, but that's because they're doing 8 weddings a day.
Yeah.
Right. So you'll get the beautiful ballroom, you'll get the beautiful chairs, but you're going to have a very specific time. You're going to be like, okay, from 6 to 8 or 6 to 10 is your time. And then there's probably going to be somebody that's there from 12 to 4. And then there's going to be a brunch wedding that goes from 8 to 11. So you're going to be stacked on top of people. So again, that's a totally different experience.
Yeah.
I mean, as you can see, there's a lot of things that go into a wedding, or any event, event.
And what makes a successful event? Like, because if each one has either is a different budget, location, or what makes a successful event? Like, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, to be just like, hey, this was a successful event.
People will make or break a wedding or an event every single time. And I think that starts with customer service. If you have great customer service, then you're going to have a great event. If people are smiling.
So when you're talking customer service, what is this? Like the people putting the event together, they have customer service?
All of it. All of them. So I'm talking about like the valet or parking attendant is smiling and welcoming you. You walk into the facility, somebody's smiling and welcoming you. The servers look happy. They look like they're thrilled to be there. They're engaging with your guests and again smiling. The bartenders are efficient. There's not a long line. Customer service is key for a successful event across the board. The second thing is your guests. right? If you're inviting people that God, where do I want to go with this? If don't invite everybody to your wedding, right? Invite people that you know want to be there and that love you and that are there because they're excited to see you get married, right?
Yeah.
If you're inviting people because you're trying to impress them, that's not going to go anywhere good.
Sure. Okay.
Right. Or think about like crazy Uncle Eddie that overdrinks.
Yeah.
Don't invite them. Don't invite them. I mean, your guest list is 100% one of the biggest pieces that is going to make or break your wedding. I mean, it really is. I mean, that's what I'm saying is that your guest list is 100%. Who you invite will make or break whether or not you have an amazing wedding.
It become tricky for wedding when you want to, because like, yeah, invite everyone who's going to be happy that you're getting married.
Right.
If you're combining these two different family, it becomes tricky because now you have the other person, the other half, like where they are bringing their family member, which you have no idea. You don't know all of them. You might know them. You met them Thanksgiving or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't know all of them when they are drunk, and also your family. You mix them, their personality. Even for those who are like okay about, I guess once few free drinks kicks in.
Yeah.
So how do you end up controlling that? That's where it become trick. That's what I was trying to think.
Oh, got you. Okay, so that is a big part of my day on the day of the wedding is controlling those kind of personalities. And that takes finesse and that takes experience to be able to see somebody kind of slightly go off the rails. And many times I've said this in the past that I can save a wedding with a bottle of water. And what I mean by that is that if I see a mother-in-law or I see, a maid of honor or another family member that's starting to look a little perturbed, right?
Mhm.
Raises one eyebrow or has a sharp response to somebody's question. Many times, if I just go over and say, "Hey, can I bring you a bottle of water? Can I check in on you? I just want to make sure you're okay." Many times that'll solve the problem right there because now they don't feel like they're forgotten or pushed to the side. Somebody is paying attention to them. But again, that's customer service. That's good customer service. When it comes to mixing families, I mean, that's when couples need to have a really honest conversation with each other about who's coming, right? You don't want to glance over double dipping Eddie. You just don't. You want to say, look, I have this crazy uncle, and for some reason, he likes to stick his finger into the dip. It's like, okay, what do we do with him? Okay, we're gonna get him his own dip, right? And you figure out ways to deal with those ahead of time. So if you know that you have an uncle that likes to stick his finger in dip, you then make sure that he has his own dip. If you have somebody that doesn't like to be in the back of the room or is really loud, you put them in a place that it's okay for them to be really loud. You have to, there's again a finesse to the seating arrangements, how you deal with people, what kind of parameters are you putting on your event. And I think the biggest thing is to let crap roll off your back. There happens all the time. Couples will be getting married. The bride is in the makeup room filled with other ladies, both mother-in-law and moms who have installed buttons in them since they were children. And they are pushing those buttons, push, and trying to get a reaction out of you because that's what they do.
Yeah.
Couples need to let that go. Be like, you know what? I'm not going to let anybody ruin my day today. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to react to people. I'm going to be a duck. I'm going to let that water roll right off my back. And then whatever life throws at you, roll with it. So one of my favorite stories is I had a wedding that was outdoors. We spent a year planning this perfect outdoor, amazing ceremony. Oh my God, it was freaking fantastic. Bus people to this very specific location where the two met, right? It was intense. A lot of work went into it. And then, of course, man makes plans, God laughs kind of thing. And it poured. It poured out of nowhere. The skies were perfectly clear. I still have no idea why it poured on these two. And they just laughed and had the best time. And the photos from that wedding are some of my favorite that I've ever seen. And because this couple just went, all right, you know what? So what? We're gonna have a good time and just laugh. And because they were having a good time, their guests had a good time. And so it became a joke. And now everybody looks back at that wedding fondly and be like, you remember that wedding that we went to and everybody got soaked? God, we had such a good time.
Yeah.
You know, but if the couple's like screaming and yelling at each other,
yeah,
then the guests are also going to be screaming and yelling at each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's a question for someone planning maybe a birthday. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm planning a birthday in Miami.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm planning a birthday in Miami, 100 people. But out of that 100 people, I'm going to have like 4 celebrities, like really big name celebrities.
Okay.
Like
yeah.
I have 2 musician friends, big name musician, and I have 2 movie star, big names. But all in general, 100 people.
Okay.
And I want to spend $100,000 for that party.
Good.
Walk me through. What would you do for me?
Wow.
like without me even telling you what I need, I just say, hey, I have 100,000 and I have 100 guests. Out of those 100, I have 4 famous people. Like I'm not talking about like D list. I'm talking about A list.
Right.
Celebrity. Yeah.
I think the number one thing is to forget that they're A list, right? If they're friends of yours, it doesn't matter what they do in their life. And in many times, because I deal with famous people, and in many times the famous person really does not want the attention on them.
No,
right?
I was thinking more of it. This part might end up in the media somewhere. It'd be like, yeah, it was a cheap, kind of like in a dirty room, kind of, because I'm talking about there's a possibility it might end up like in the media. Okay, yeah, that's great.
Okay, got you. Okay,
forget that they are famous. Just think about they're your friends. Okay, go ahead.
Right, just think of them as your friends and plan the party that you want to plan for yourself. Like you wouldn't want to have a birthday party in a dirty room. That's just not something that would be your thing, right? I mean, you're not purposely going for the sticky floors and the strip club.
Yeah.
But and then again, forget that they're celebrities. Plan the party that you want to plan for yourself, or if it's a surprise party for the other person. And then many times the photos, when you talk about photos going into the media, many times there is a whole set of legal paperwork that has to be done, signed, etc., before a famous person really can be at an event, be photographed at an event, and then for it to be publicized. I mean, a lot of people see these amazing photos, like Jennifer Lopez. She just had her 2nd wedding, or 5th wedding, whatever. But her formal wedding to Ben, and Colin Cowie, who I know was their event planner or wedding planner, and he wasn't able to repurpose the photos from the wedding until after their publicist had okayed that and give him the rights to do it. Right. So the photos went out to People magazine first, and then to a couple of other locations, and then he was allowed to post it on Facebook. So there's a whole different set of rules when it comes to famous people and their weddings.
Let's do this. Forget about the picture. Let's talk about just the party. I say, hey, Keith Willard Events. I have $100,000. I have 100 people. I want to have the best party in Miami. What would you put for me?
I mean, the question would be first, like, do you want indoor or outdoor, and time of year, right? Because weather is a huge factor here in South Florida. And of course, if it's during the summer, you don't want people sweating. So you're going to want to do an indoor event. So that's the number one thing would be indoor or outdoor. Location is everything. If you're talking about $100,000 and you're saying an indoor event, then I would look at some like hippest, hottest, coolest location, like Faena, right? Faena has that big gold fossil, I forget dinosaur in a gold cage. I think it would be cool to do a party around that with that as your centerpiece. Faena is fairly expensive. It's like $300-400 per person just for food and beverage. Yeah, but if you wanted to do it on the beach, then I would want to rent out something like Fisher Island and do something that is totally unique for your guests, that is an experience for them. Like me personally, I would do a glass bottom boat, but I because I think that I would have a lot of guests coming in from out of town that would want to do touristy things. And
Yeah.
so why not combine the two and have some cool, a fast glass bottom boat that takes them out over the reef, and then we have seafood while we get to watch fish. I don't know. There's something to me that I find funny about that. Sushi bar over the reefs. Anyway, but I mean, a lot of it will have to do with like your tastes and what you're looking to do, and then I blow that up for like whatever direction you want to go. So a lot of it will have to do with answers that you would give me.
Actually, that kind of answers, because even someone who just say, "Hey, I just have this much money and how much uh, guest," actually kind of raises a little bit question for them to kind of answer. To answer a few questions for them, for you to be able to help them, like from do you want to indoor, outdoor? Do you want people to eat? What do you want? Something like that. Do you want them to do a boat like tour or something? So that's really good.
And keep in mind, money does not guarantee a good time. It just doesn't. It really doesn't. I mean, when you see a rich person and you're like, oh, they have no worries, no fears, that's typically not the case. Typically, they have more worries and more fears because they're worried about losing their money and losing the opportunity to support their companies and what have you. And so I tell people, don't throw money at it. That's not going to solve anything. If anything, we want to make sure again that we start with customer service, good food, good beverage, good vendors, and then go from there. And you can find that and on multiple price points. I mean, that's the thing, is that if you have a strict budget, there are people out there that work in that field that are amazing at that price point. It's just a matter of knowing who they are.
Yeah.
And again, find somebody local that knows the world, and you'll be able to get anything accomplished.
Yeah. Question. What will be a first? I meant to ask you also this, because I know a couple times when I've spoken to you, you're always a happy person.
Yeah, I hope so.
What get you excited about life?
I like that moment of laughter and joy. I'm a big fan of laughter. I think that watching people have a good time, there's just nothing better than watching people have a good time. And I mean, and an authentically good time, not as a networking event and the fake laugh and the champagne glass. No, I want people to be like, God, that was fun. God, that was just the most amazing thing. And
you enjoy to see people happy.
I enjoy watching people be happy. Yeah. And if I can be the person that help make that happen, that's even better. Plus, I came from a world of not-for-profit, so I'm used to trying to do as much as I can for every dollar, and to try to help my fellow brothers and sisters, so to speak. When you start your world in the not-for-profit, your brain is always attuned to, how do I help people? How do I help my community? What can I do to not just better myself, but better the people around me? And if that's done through events. I mean, that's why I took on as being president of NACE in South Florida for our local chapter for many years, is because I wanted to do some type of community service. And I still do a lot of volunteering. Like if there's a wedding that Make-A-Wish Foundation or one of these other foundations will sometimes approach me and say, we have a really needy couple that needs to have a wedding, but they just don't have the funds, and it's through a not-for-profit, and I'll donate my time. I'll donate all my effort, all of my money, everything that I've got. I will donate it to this couple in order to make this happen, because it might be because one of them is terminally ill and they want to get married before one of them passes or something, and that's a very sad situation. So if I'm able to do something that brightens that couple's day, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. With this massive experience that you have, with the background that you have, so I'm assuming you can do birthday, wedding, charity events, funerals.
Yeah, I've done a couple of funerals. I actually have done a couple of funerals, and they were amazing. I actually enjoyed doing the funerals because again, it's about remembrance and joy. Finding, remembering that person in the best possible way. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I love that.
I know a funeral. I know it's like just random somewhere.
I
So
love it. You're like, let me throw what I can at him. Okay, what about funeral? Can you make
yeah,
that good? It's like,
yeah, I know it. So give me an example. So to sum it up, like how many years have you been in an event, kind of, event? I guess there's a difference between event manager or event coordinator. Is there
uh,
like a, and
I've been
now,
doing I've
mhm,
been doing events for 40 plus years because I was even in high school, I was doing the proms and
yeah,
I was doing Kiwanis Club and I was doing the football rosters and all that stuff. I mean, I was involved in events since I was little bitty. Well, I've never been little bitty. I'm 6'3", so I've never been little bitty. But
you're like a little bitty, but everybody see you. Yeah,
yeah, everybody sees me. Yeah, but I mean, I've been in the world of events my whole life. It's second nature to me. It's like I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I just couldn't.
quick. So with all that events, with the extensive experience with event, give
Yeah.
me one event that you done. It was the best, and then give me the one it was like the worst. Like, and you tell me why was it best, and the other one why was it worst.
Oh God, this is
If you
good.
had to pick
Okay.
one out of the yeah.
Wow, that's hard because I've done
Yeah,
so
I know
many. Like,
the one I was about to say you because you're gonna say Mark Cuban was the worst event.
no, it actually wasn't the best. Actually, that was actually it was, and I love that. I mean, it was Mark Cuban's 40th birthday, so I
Yeah,
did, and it was a backyard event in his Dallas home, and he had just bought the Mavericks and had just bought his team plane and all that good stuff, and so we had John Mellencamp come in and sing. As because he really loves John Mellencamp,
yeah.
and we set this whole huge backyard thing. Now, of course, it was July, and so it's ridiculously hot, and so we had to bring in these huge fans and stuff. So it was a pain in the ass, but it was a fun event. But it's not my favorite.
Yeah.
Definitely not my favorite. As far as my favorite, I like anything that is over the top and uses a lot of creativity. I had a wedding recently at the Ritz-Carlton Bell Harbor. It was same-sex wedding, and so it was we built the stage show. I brought in a company called ESG, Event Services Group, and a little shout out to Jeff Gold because he was my point person there. And we created this whole, like, we wanted every moment was a different experience, not only for the couple but for the guests. And so the ceremony, we built a bridge that went across this pond so that the two can meet in the middle at the same time. The cocktail reception had huge seafood bar, and we had a band just for the cocktail reception. The dinner was super formal, gorgeous centerpieces, dramatic lighting, and then we had this drag queen come in and roast the couple towards the end of the dinner, which provided a ton of laughter, which was amazing. Oh my God, I love a couple being roasted. And then we had these false walls built, and the walls separated, and behind them was like a laser show and these robots and like this crazy dance party. It was over the top, amazing. And there were just surprises constantly, after each other. Worst wedding. Hyatt Pier 66. So one of my first hotel jobs when I was in South Florida, it was actually my first event there, and I had a couple that basically lied the entire process. They said, "Oh, we're only going to have 50 people." 200 people showed up. Oh, we have this amazing caterer. The caterer was awful. They ruined stuff. They threw stuff everywhere. The customer service was horrible. The cleaning bill from that was thousands of dollars because they just wrecked the place. It was just horrible. I'm not a big fan of bar mitzvahs typically because most parents want to just drop off their kid and run away for a night, and so the kids go crazy and run around. If they're respectful kids, great, but unfortunately, that hasn't been a great experience in my life. I mean, I always bring extra security, and I'm hardcore about, like, we got to keep everybody in this room under control, and there has to have respect for the venue. Yeah, I mean, nutshell.
So
God,
I guess what I have a few questions from that. So the first question is, when someone dealing with you, they're doing Keith Willard events. So the good advice is to give you everything, where you handle everything from the customer service, meaning like, valet
yeah.
parking, and like to handling the food, to handling flowers, location, all this. Probably is that better way that way, or should they be like, hey, you handle the venue, I got someone else is handling the valet, I got,
Yeah.
is it, which one is better?
Well, I mean, I always like to have control of everything, but I'm a control freak. So, I'm an A-type personality. I want to have my fingers in everything, kind of thing. But most of my clients have found their venue first, right? They found the perfect place that they want to get married, and then they come to me. And sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. As far as like, I feel like sometimes when I get them after they've booked their venue, I look at their contract and I think, oh, I could have done better for them, or I could have negotiated something, or they didn't really understand what they were signing, and so then I have to like fix things, right? I have to
So,
put up.
for there, before you move on, like for there, probably, so you suggesting if someone is doing an event or looking to do a wedding, they should reach out to you first
Yeah,
before they proceed anything, before they do any venue, anything. Or if
right.
they already know the venue, they should
Yeah,
reach out to you first and be like, hey, can you look at this venue, kind of thing.
100%. Well, because think about this, you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
right? So most people that are putting together a big event, and we're not talking about backyard birthday kind of thing. I mean, a big event. They don't know anything. Basically, they don't know what the rules are of the city. They don't know if there's trash issues, parking issues. Do we need permits? Do we need police officers there? Do we need type of security? What does a food and beverage minimum mean? What does a room block mean? What does attrition mean? I mean, there's a lot of just general information that I want to make sure that people have at least some basic education before stepping forward and getting into these contracts that they cannot get out of.
Is there maybe a notion of thinking like, hey, I will get the venue first before I hire Keith Willard events because I will save money instead of me
100%.
is it how do you explain to them like, hey, you're not saving any money, or you're not spending too much money by hiring me where I handle everything? Does it sound like maybe they're gonna end up paying you more money
Yeah.
because
Well,
they included the venue and everything? Yeah.
a good event planner, a good event planner will save you more money than you can even count, right? They will pay for themselves in the savings and insights that they will provide. A good one. Now, a bad one, and unfortunately, there's I do not take kickbacks from vendors, right? Meaning that if somebody gives me a discount, let's say a chair rental. Most events, you're going to have a chair rental. There's a Chiavari chair in South Florida will range in price from $4.50 to $6.50, depending on which company you go to.
Yeah.
Most wedding planner, I shouldn't say most, some event planners will charge $8 per chair to the client and pocket that $2 in profit. Right.
Yeah.
Or and hopefully they're upfront about that crap, because you don't want them finding out later that you overspent for chairs and tables and linens because your event planner was pocketing that in the back end. If they're upfront about it and say, look, I'm going to take 20% of all your rentals, great. I'm a big fan of that. But if they're not being upfront about it and they're trying to be sneaky about it, that's when I have an issue. That's when I go, that's sneaky business. And so I just make it a rule that I just do not take kickbacks at all, and whatever discount I get, I pass that on to my clients, and that helps pay for me, right?
And then not
also
only that,
sure that
no, I was about to say, not only that,
sure.
getting you creating loyalty where they can refer you probably to other customer anyway, right? By saving them money.
Yeah. Well, 90% of my business is referral, 90%, but I mean, that's the thing, is that I want to make sure that I'm doing as much as I possibly can for my clients, saving them as much money as possible in any possible direction, or spending their money wisely. Let me just put it that way. Maybe spending their money wisely. Like, I'm not a fan of favors. I think favors suck when it comes to a wedding. Those little gifts that you get, everybody leaves them. like 30% get left behind. And who needs a champagne glass with somebody else's name on it in your cabinet? Right?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So that's a way to save people's money. It's like, look, don't spend it on a favor. Spend it on an experience. Have some alcoholic ice cream. There's a company called Frost 321 that does nitrogen ice cream, and every scoop is a shot of liquor. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing like bourbon chocolate ice cream. Just saying, bourbon chocolate ice cream.
Yeah. So I was writing some mixture. Question on the wedding on the wedding. So I know. So you do same-sex marriage, and also you do
all of them. All of them.
You do. So
LGBTQ plus blah 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 blah. All the alphabets.
So because I was thinking the way you say they're like drag queen cam style, like roasting the
couple,
the couples, and then but I'm like, you cannot do the same. I don't know if it can work on a men and women kind of. Would that does each wedding has to be a different theme, because one is same
sex. Yep.
Same sex, and the other one is men and women. Does it have a different?
Oh God, huge. Okay, do you know who Michelle Buteau is? Michelle Buteau. She's a comedian. She's like in a bunch of movies. She's an up and coming star, Michelle Buteau. And
probably if I see their face, I will know. Yeah.
Well,
and
I did her wedding years ago, and she's a comedian. Right. So she's a comedian, and we were able to do a lot of fun things because that's who she is. She's funny and she wants people to laugh. And I had another couple that is very, very strict religiously, needed to have some very specific rules in place, especially here in South Florida. There's Hasidic Jews that we have to be very careful about, men and women being separated, and there's some very specific rules that you have to have in place. And so a lot depends on the couple. You gotta know who your client is. I can't have an ultra religious couple and then have like everybody doing shots. I mean, if they don't drink in their religion, you wouldn't have a bar there. So a lot has to do with the people. I mean, who's your client? I'm not going to suggest a drag queen for everybody. Oh my God. That'd be surprise. Okay. Like, ta-da, look what I got you. Okay, drag queen.
I'm sure though. I'm sure like it's gonna be probably 50-50, like where one part of like 50% of the people are going to enjoy it, and then 50% be pissed off.
And that's the thing is you got to know their guests too. You got to know their guests, and then a lot of that has to do with questioning and stuff. But when I think that, again, I'm going to go back to the basics of any type of an event. Start with what is important to you as far as a birthday, as and also people's anticipated experience. Let me I wanted to actually put this out there. A lot of people get wrapped up in their head about what they think their guests want as far as an experience, right? And so they say, "Oh, I'm going to do a wedding, but my guests really expect us to be at a Ritz-Carlton, or they really expect us to have this like over the top wedding." Yeah. Typically, that's not true. Most people that get invited to a wedding think, "I'm going to watch somebody get married. There'll probably be drinks. Great. There'll probably be some food. I'm going to eat dinner and I'm going to dance." Yeah. I mean, that is the anticipated experience is way down. And so, don't get too wrapped up in, this is what my guests are wanting to experience. I mean, people waste a ton of money thinking that, again, that their guests are wanting more than they actually do. I mean, how many times do you have crappy chicken at a wedding, right? Know, right? So spend a little money on the extra, on the better caterer, and you're going to be fine, and less on the entertainment. Yeah.
Listen, Keith, I know we can keep talking. I
know. I'm sorry. I can keep going.
We went over our time, but it's like, this was a great conversation. Let's do this. Let's summarize just before we go. If you can just summarize just quick, and just can you explain what is Keith Willard Events and how can they find you?
Okay, so Keith Willard Events is a corporate and social event company located here in South Florida. We specialize, obviously, in weddings and anniversaries, those kind of intersocial kind of connections. You can find me on basically every social media platform at Keith Willard. So TikTok, which I have no videos, so don't look. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn is Keith Willard 1. I don't understand why that happened, but I
Yeah.
guess I missed it. But I'll take number 1. So yeah, Keith Willard 1, or my website at keithwillardevents.com. Is a great resource, a great place to go to. But yeah, my Instagram is my favorite. At Keith Willard is my Instagram. And then also I do a podcast myself called Behind the Veil, which is a podcast that goes behind the veil into weddings and events and talks all about anything that is wedding related. So
That's awesome.
check out Behind the Veil as well. So
Behind the Veil. Thank you so much, Keith Willard. And I really appreciate for taking the time to chat with me. This was a lot of good information. So for someone who's looking to save some money, do an awesome event, just search for Keith Willard.
oh my God, yeah. And
Yep.
know that you're gonna have a good time, because my big thing is I want to bring the joy back into planning, and it can get overwhelming. So find somebody. It doesn't have to be me. Find somebody that you trust and that can help you with this.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Keith.
Thank you.
Yeah.